What's up, everyone? It's Mike with Travel Nursing Classroom, bringing you another amazing video from my home office / living room here in Nebraska. Today we're in an important topic. It's kind of a Travel Nursing 101 topic, so it's going to be brief, action-packed, as always, to the point. We're going to be talking about the parties involved in a travel nursing contract. And this topic's kind of straightforward, but there are a couple important points for you to know, the nurse or travel professional out there. So let's just start from the beginning with you, the nurse. So you decide you want to become a traveler and you're going to start looking into travel contracts. So typically travel contracts are going to be 13 weeks in length. You're going to contact a recruiter at a specific company and you are employed as the travel nurse by that company. It's important to know you're employed by them. You're going to get a W-2 from them. You're going to submit all your paperwork directly to them. And basically your paycheck is going to have their name on it every week. So you are employed by the travel company, even though you are working at the hospital. And a couple more things that are important to know, for you to know about this relationship. So not only is the company going to be managing all of this for you, they're going to be taking a cut of your money. And essentially the cut that they take is anywhere from, I'd say on average, about 10% on the low end, up to maybe 30-35% on the high end. And that's kind of the average. There are, of course, always outliers where some companies are only going to take 5% on a deal. Some companies try to maximize every single deal and might take up to 50% of your pay. So that's why it's important to know some of this stuff. And essentially what they're taking a percentage of is the bill rate. And that bill rate is determined by the hospital. And so the hospital, depending on a number of factors, whether the hospital, how profitable they are, where they're located, how desperate they are for a travel nurse, all of those things factor in for the hospital. So the hospital basically says, okay, we need a travel nurse. We are willing to pay $60 an hour for a travel nurse. Or some might say we're willing to pay $90 per hour for a travel nurse. So once the hospital decides they need a travel nurse, they're going to contact a lot of times the recruiting companies directly. And it's also important for you to know that all of these contracts are already set up before you even get into the picture of the travel nurse. So every single day, these recruiting companies are calling different hospitals and setting up contracts so that when nurses like yourself call in and basically say, hey, I'm ready to go, now the company's got a list of hospitals that have openings, and the company also has a list of nurses that might be good matches for that job. So it's important for you to know all of those things, but also know that you're going to be going up every time, probably up against some competition for each job. And we'll get into, resume tips, how you can stand out from the crowd, things like that later on. But that's the basic setup. There is sometimes a fourth party involved. So if you're the hospital and you've got an opening and all of a sudden you're the nurse manager on a certain unit and that nurse manager says, yep, I've got an opening. As you can imagine, that nurse manager will probably start getting a ton of candidates. And it's very overwhelming for that nurse manager not only to do her job, but to also manage the application process, do the interviews, and find the best fit. So a lot of times there's what's called a vendor. I felt like Austin Powers there, vendor. There's a vendor involved that's another middleman, a second middleman between the hospital and all the recruiting companies. And so that vendor in the middle here is essentially going to handle the application process. So from A to Z, that's kind of how it's broken down. You've got you, the nurse, who gets anywhere from 60 to 90% of that bill rate that the hospital decides. You've got the recruiting company who you're employed by, and then sometimes you've got a vendor in between the recruiting company and the hospital kind of managing everything. So hopefully that clears up a few things. Like I said, this is kind of a 101 at its very basic, the setup of everything. If I missed something or if you have more questions, always email me at mike@travelnursingclassroom.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's amazing video with, I'm sure, an amazing tip or trick or something. And then lastly, I want to hear from you. Question of the day is, I want to know how far along in the travel nursing process you are. Are you a brand new nurse? Have you knocked out a couple of assignments, or are you a pro? You've been doing this for 10 years and you maybe could teach me some things. Email me. But either way, thanks so much, guys, and we'll chat on the next video.